Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts, Christy Palermo and Jennifer Hobson, and today we are talking about discipline. Okay, Jen, my question for you, where in this season of life, where would you say you're seeing discipline show up the most, but also where is it working?
So I love two-part questions, right? I always tend to give you a long-winded answer with lots of little tidbit stories. So where it's showing up is actually in several different places, which makes sense because for discipline to be effective, we use it in a lot of different places in our life. And the first one that actually comes to mind is with my oldest son, and I just kind of realized it the other day. So he is big into sports. He's the kid that is automatically good at most sports, which serves him pretty well. However, sometimes it doesn't. When he doesn't get something quickly, he may tend to get frustrated, right? And we've talked a lot about continuing to practice and just playing as practice, because for kids, play can be fun and it can be practice, and they don't realize it's those small, he played every single day for 7 days, and now all of a sudden the thing he was frustrated, maybe it was a layup, whatever it is, now he's an expert at it, because we know kids are sponges, and if I try to be an expert at a layup, it's not going to look the same as the 7-year-old. And the biggest one is he played flag football last year, and he's a fast kid, right? But he didn't have the greatest arm. But he would get the ball and he would just run it, right? Get a touchdown, get a touchdown. But what he's been practicing at for over years, throwing the ball. And I went out back to throw the ball with him the other day, and I was like, damn, where did that spiral come from? Because last year he could barely throw the thing, and I was quite impressed by what he was able to do. And it just goes back to the idea of, he didn't just throw the ball one time and then all of a sudden he has a spiral down, right? He's 7 years old. He had fun and he played and he practiced over and over and over again. And I'm sure even between 7 and maybe 10 or 7 and 17, if he's going to get the discipline, if that's truly what he wants to do, and again, he's 7, we're not naming him the next quarterback of the New England Patriots, guys, but if he's 7 and there's something that he wants to do just like that, if he's giving it small, daily, consistent action and he's committed to the discipline, I can't even imagine what he would be capable of, right? And I also saw it not in the physical, but in the intellectual side of things. His reading has blown me away. And again, their brains are like sponges. But in September, he was below, the expected, I do air quotes, word per minute. But we only read for 15 minutes every single day, right? And that was in September. We're just in March now. His reading now has gone from, he was reading really only, I think it was 45 words per minute. And just from September to March, he's gone from 45 to he reads 200 words per minute, which is insane to me. Like, that is crazy to me. And we didn't do anything extraordinary. I didn't go sit down and, read your book for an hour and a half. Like, first of all, that would be miserable. However, there was the discipline of 15 minutes a day. And were we perfect? Absolutely not. We took a trip and maybe he didn't read, or, he didn't feel like it one day, and that's okay. Not every day, but once in a while, he wanted to give his brain a rest. And again, it's different in children, but he's shown up consistently for himself 15 minutes a day, and the improvement has been amazing. And I apply it to the same idea with an adult, and I see it a lot of times in my business and even for myself. When I am committed to the daily action and I have created discipline, that is when I accomplish the most. And it's not right away, it's over time. And where I see that people are either successful or they're literally dead in the water with what we do is, it's the people that give up after one day, or it's the people even after 2 weeks. And I talked about this in the other conversation we had. It's just like sowing seeds, right? I have some right now that are sprouting, and even more since that last conversation. And you know what? My eyes go to the dirt with no seedlings. If I'm focused on that, I'm not going to accomplish anything. So I got to go back to the ones and love and nurture the ones that have popped through the ground. But instead, most of us, and the average person, if we're not seeing the results of our discipline immediately, we think it's not effective, so we stop the discipline. Same thing with fitness, right? I am on a 90-day mission. I am on day 11. I still don't have six-pack abs. What the hell? So I should probably stop my 90-day mission, right? No, that's not how any of that works. It's not how it works. And I've clearly seen Christy several times apply discipline and consistent action and come out on the other side accomplishing. And I would love if you shared at least one of your stories, Christy, because I've seen it several times.
Well, I also want to touch upon the fact that you're talking about your son, because I think it's really a great point to make, because we forget as adults what it's like when we were a kid and able to dive in without seeing the short-term results. And so seeing him in two different instances, I mean, with the reading, that is incredible. That's over 200% growth from
Right.
September to now, which if you think of that in any goal as an adult, if somebody told you you will have to over 200% growth, you would be like, that's not possible. And we shut it down. And sometimes it is, like you said, just after a day or 2 weeks of just being like, oh, I'm not seeing anything, I'm just quitting. But more than not, it's actually like this quiet, slow fade. And it's less and less a day. But as we can see, like, for instance, with the reading, it's not that it takes, and with most goals and discipline, it's not that it takes hours a day. 15 minutes a day is what showed you 200% growth. Like, that is, it doesn't have to be crazy discipline. It just has to be consistent. So I guess one of the instances that, well, there's two different ones that show up that I'm thinking of for myself. And one of them was with my business, where I was working my business from France. My husband and I were living in France for a summer, and it was 3 months that we were over there, and I was doing my work, but I wasn't really seeing the results that I thought I would see at that point. And I was a little bit into my business that I felt confident enough in the actual work, in my technique and skills and all of that, of course still growing, but enough that I was like, why am I not seeing the success that I thought I would? But even still, what had been ingrained in me as an artist was, which that's the next story I'll go into, but was sticking to it anyway. Even though I wasn't seeing what I thought I would see, I was surrounding myself, which this is a big part of discipline too, is I think surrounding yourself with the people that are going to support you and not just let you off the hook. We definitely all have people in our lives that are like, well, you need a rest, it's fine, or you've been working so hard, don't even worry about it. Like, just take some time or come back to it at another time. And it's like, people are always lovingly supporting us in that way, but that's not going to serve us, and it's not going to get us to our goals. So you need to also surround yourself with the people that are going to be like, okay, well, what did you do today? Like, let's go, let's talk about it. Like, what did you do it? Because Jen was that person for me, and our mentor too. And okay, well, show me what you've been doing. Like, you're expecting certain results. Like, okay, so this is what I've been doing. I am actually staying consistent, but I had to wait for the fruits of my labor to come around. I had to wait for the harvesting season to come from the seeding season, like as you just mentioned with gardening. And it wasn't until after I came back from France 3 months later that I finally saw the growth that I was looking for. But it took that consistent daily discipline, not a ton of work, not hours of work, just small amounts of time daily that came back around. And my whole team saw growth after 3 months, those 3 months, but I didn't see it in the short term. And so that is something I think that comes up, especially as adults, and especially with trying something new. We don't want to stick to something new because we don't want to be bad at something at the outset, and so that makes me think of my performing life. And so I had always danced, but didn't get into trapeze until I was 28. So of course there was um, a moment of time frame where it seemed like it would be impossible. I had never done gymnastics or gone upside down. I was pretty strong, but I had never done anything like that. So there was moments of complete doubt. But I was still in my 20s, even though it was late 20s. So I still had enough optimism and open-mindedness to keep going with it, because it was either I choose to do this or I leave. I stick with this job or I don't have work. That's it. Those are your decisions. And so it was sticking with that, and just continuing to see the daily discipline, and being able to learn a new skill that is really one of the hardest challenges of my life, but one of the hardest physical challenges that a body can go through is, an extreme sport. And it's in that way. And so seeing that my body could change and learn something, and what I first went through was a 3-week boot camp before I had to be able to, it wasn't perform on the ship yet. I worked on cruise ships, but our routine was done within 3 weeks, our boot camp. So in 3 weeks is a very short time. If you think about it logically, I would have been like, hell no, that's never going to happen. But these people know what they're doing. And so I trusted the process, and went with it. And most days I cried. I had blisters on my hands. I didn't feel like I was seeing a lot of progress some days. I fell, I got hurt a couple times, but it was just showing up every day anyway, because I saw the end goal. And I think that is a big part of discipline too, is sticking to, okay, what am I going to get out of this? Not looking at these short-term results, but what am I going to get out of this? What is this leading to? What is this leading to? What is this leading to? And then 3 weeks later, doing a whole routine on a trapeze, and then 6 weeks later, like actually performing it in the air, when that's a whole nother story, but finding out I was afraid of heights. I think I mentioned that in another one, and learning that you can work through that. But it was just that daily consistency, no matter what, showing up and seeing what your body is capable of is astounding. And you will always surprise yourself with the amount of growth you could go through, all the time. Like, I feel like in every goal I've set too, it's like you always surprise yourself with the amount of growth that we think we can attain at the beginning, but ends up coming out anyway from the daily discipline.
It's a powerful story, and it's definitely on a shortened timeline for most of us when we're setting these goals. And back to our other conversation about vision, you were envisioning yourself, swinging from the trapeze or whatever it is that you actually do up there. I just watch in awe. But you had every point where you could have made an excuse. You could have said, I'm 28, which we know in the world of performance, that's old, right? I'm too old to do this. I never did trapeze as a child. I'm not going to be any good at this. I'm afraid of this. I could hurt myself. Like, excuse after excuse after excuse, where you only had to say yes once. You had the vision, and then you say yes, and you're disciplined to say yes over and over and over and over again, and you continue to show up for yourself. And I shared this with Christy before we even started, is there's two definitions of discipline, right? There's the practice of training to obey and using punishment to correct yourself. Or if you look at discipline a different way, it's your discipline, it's your branch of knowledge. And so many times we make those excuses, the ones that Christy could have absolutely fell into, where we don't try something because we're afraid of failure. That discipline doesn't actually require the knowledge ahead of time to just say yes or get started. That's not how it works. All discipline requires is you saying yes and you showing up every single day to move the needle forward to what you said you wanted to create, towards the goal, towards that big, clear vision, right? You don't need to know all the things. I think so many people hold themselves back from doing the big, new, scary things because they're afraid they don't know enough. They want to bury their heads in research. And even as people that come from personal development, you want to just bury yourself in personal development. You can read all the books. You can read all the books in the world that say, keep going, show up, be a motivator, inspire people, do all these things. But you're not actually taking the action every day to do it yourself, right? You can be a personal development junkie. You can do all these things, but if you're not showing up daily, or you show up once a month and go, I don't know why it isn't working, because you're not doing the damn thing. You're just not. You're not showing up. And I think that's so important. Stop thinking you need to be an expert It's a branch of knowledge. If you decide to show up for your discipline, guess who ends up being the expert? You.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that story because it shows you, and again, it's compacted into a small amount of time. Most of us, when we say yes to the goals and the vision, aren't given 6 weeks. But you know what? When there's no back door, we've talked about this before, and there's no other option, you just fucking make it happen.
Right. And I just want to add on because it popped in my head as you were just saying that, where you're talking about just do the damn thing. And then there is a point where, okay, if you are showing up every day and doing the damn thing, then and months go by and you're not seeing any progress, that's where then you do have to actually look at the skill and what you're doing, and maybe you need some guidance and assistance, and sometimes you need to make a pivot or a shift because you don't want to be totally ignoring the fact that you're not growing in the skill either. So there is that side of it, 100%. But the first part is the discipline, and I love how you say it that way, Jen, is just to say yes every day. And I love Ed Mylett. We what's the name of his latest book that I know we both read, and I really like it.
It's Power of One More.
Yes, because that's what I was just going to say is, so that's the title of it, is just one more, saying one more day. I can do this for one more day today. And that book was really awesome. So Ed Mylett, The Power of One More. And he has a lot of great tips and tools on things. But really, it's just that one more day, I can do it for one day. Can you do it for one day? You can. You absolutely can.
You can do one more of anything, right? If you apply it to the stories we told you, Landon can read one more time for 15 minutes, right? He can throw one more football. I can ask one more person to have a conversation about what I do. Christy can climb to the top of the ladder one more time. In fitness, I guess I'll do one more core workout because I still don't have a 6-pack abs, but I can do one more workout. And if you're holding yourself back, really, you're just holding your back from doing it one more time, every single time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if you're tacking that on to what you're saying, like one more set of something that you're doing, for instance, a throw or one more conversation you're looking at, then that turns into the compound effect, which then your results are going to grow from there, because then that's that one more rep, one more conversation, whatever it is that you're going for. Now that's 7 more in a week, and that's 30 more in a month. Think of how many more, I can't do the math in my head, in a year that is, but it's going to set you apart, and it's going to set you further ahead to do that one more. So I love that it's turning into, we touched on this subject because while the discipline is there, doing that one more can take you further, faster, and make you more of an expert sooner, because we tend to, again, mentally discount ourselves from being an expert, as I'm using air quotes again, expert at something. But you can, it just takes time. It's just we choose to be like, oh, I could never. I feel like I hear that a lot. I could never, but it's really just, I mean, if you want to just start learning, just do it.
Right?
Just start. But if you don't want to do it, that's a whole nother story. But don't say I could never, because then you're totally discounting yourself. You just have to start. And then that one more effect is really where it compounds.
And I think most of us either forget or don't identify that discipline is honestly a form of self-love. You honestly have to love yourself enough to give yourself what you deserve. And the only way you will do that is by being disciplined and showing up for you. Honestly, it is the most powerful form of self-love. Choosing to show up for you before anyone else, before anything else, is the way that you can show that you matter to yourself, and your dreams matter, and your goals matter, and your vision matters, and what you want to create is on the other side of small daily discipline.
100%. I believe that. And I mean, as we talk about discipline, I start to think also about habits. And we can circle back around to this. We've touched on it on other episodes before, but really, if you're like, well, where do I start? How do I get disciplined? I don't know where to begin. Well, first of all, it's identifying what is the most important thing you need to do today, or the first right step. What is the first right step? And then the second step will present itself. You figure out the way as you go, but you have to take one first step. And Jen and I have talked about this before, but the best way to add something in as a discipline, as a habit, is something that's going to be simple enough in your day to get you to do it, to then give you confidence and energy to do the next thing. So if you need to stack a habit, I've mentioned this before, that I find to be super helpful to add it onto something you're already doing in your day. You always are going to brush your teeth. So maybe you tack something onto right after you brush your teeth, you do XYZ or whatever it is. So stacking a habit can be so helpful, because there's certain things in your day you're going to do. It's just shifting around other things in your schedule to make that happen. And then it's just keeping your eye on the prize, keep your eye on the goal and why you're doing it. Why do you want to show up? Why do you want it to be something that you're disciplined in within a year? Because anybody can learn to be disciplined, and having excuses about it is, anybody can have an excuse too, but anybody can be disciplined. You might say, oh, but I'm not a reader, or I'm not this kind of person. You can label yourself as that, but until you just simply show up one day, and then the next day, and then the third day you say yes one more time, all of a sudden you're building a discipline, you're building a habit that's going to get you closer to your goals.
Absolutely. And I think it can either be the excuse you don't do something, or it can be the reason why. And just like Christy said, we love actually Ed Mylett's podcast, Max Out, talks a lot about these things and showing up. And he's given so many examples of successful people. And what I'll say is the successful people, they had to start somewhere. And it probably wasn't perfect, but they kept going. They kept doing one more. And the other thing is, even when they accomplished their goals, they created new goals and new visions. Because if you stop once you've achieved something, guess what? You don't get to keep it. That's not how any of that works. So if there's something you're going for, make sure you show up for yourself and for the vision that you've created. And if you've already accomplished some big, scary goals, it's time to make some new ones so you know why you're showing up every day. And I think that's, the best way that I can describe it, if you think of it in an actual physical business, right? I think of there's a pizza place on every single freaking corner, right? Or up here it's Dunkin' Donuts, right? But I'm thinking of, someone that owns a restaurant and they're extremely successful, right? They're the restaurant that everyone talks about, and they're like, you got to go there, you got to go there. And they've been there for 50 years, right? There was probably ups and probably downs, but when they didn't sell all 8 pieces of their original pizza, they didn't say, oh, we must suck at this, time to close the doors.
That's
not what
point.
happened. So you can either choose to make another pie and see if you can sell or 8 slices, or you can close shop after day 1. It's one or the other. You have to either choose that they're excuses, or choose that they're the reason why you keep going.
Exactly. And yeah, exactly, Jen. And so we are loving this conversation about discipline. Join in on the conversation. We're going to keep these podcasts going for you. We are here for you guys. So we want to know what you want to talk about too, because we love these conversations. And so you can follow us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical, and we will see you next time.